Have you ever wondered what secrets lie beneath the soil of America's oldest towns? What forgotten horrors remain buried in unmarked graves, waiting to be discovered? The ground we walk on holds memories, dark memories that sometimes refuse to stay buried. In Pennsylvania's historic soil, some stories have waited over a century to be told. Before you continue watching this video, please comment where you're watching from. We need your support to continue sharing these hidden stories that the mainstream media won't touch. Subscribe now. This channel depends on viewers like you to expose the dark truths that others try to keep hidden. The winter of 2024 brought record rainfall to Chester County, Pennsylvania. The normally quiet town of Westbrook Haven, founded in the 1700s, saw unprecedented flooding that ravaged its historic cemetery on Harlow Hill. As the waters receded, they left behind more than mud and debris. They exposed something that had been carefully hidden for 121 years. On January 12th, groundskeeper Morris Finley was assessing flood damage at Harlow Cemetery when his equipment struck something metallic at the edge of the property, near the paupers section. What he found wasn't on any cemetery map: a small rectangular metal box with peculiar engravings. Inside was a leather journal, preserved remarkably well, with the name Dr. Elias Thorne inscribed on the first page. The journal contained detailed notes about 3 infant girls born on December 21st, 1903, triplets born to Margaret and William Caldwell, a respectable local family. The discovery might have remained a curiosity if not for what happened next. The continued cleanup efforts revealed a disturbing anomaly. Ground-penetrating radar detected a mass burial site outside the cemetery's original boundaries. What workers unearthed would become the most disturbing archaeological find in Chester County's history. I've been working cemetery restoration for 27 years, and I've never seen anything like it, said Dr. Amelia Richardson, the forensic archaeologist called to the scene. The preservation was unnatural. Science can't explain what we found. What they found was the remains of 3 infant girls, approximately 3 months old at time of death. But it wasn't their discovery that shocked the archaeological team, it was their condition. Despite being buried for more than a century, the remains showed minimal decomposition. The 3 bodies were positioned in a triangle, facing inward, their small hands still locked together around a single black leather Bible. The Bible itself was in perfect condition, its pages unmarked by time or the elements. Inside the front cover was a single line of text, written in faded ink: "The 3 shall become one, and the one shall never die." From Dr. Thorne's recovered journal, authorities pieced together the beginning of a story that would soon consume the small town. The Caldwell triplets, named Eve, Esther, and Elizabeth, were born healthy, though unusually small. Dr. Thorne noted their identical appearance and an unusual birthmark each girl bore on the back of her neck. 3 interconnected spirals that resembled an ancient triskelion. December 22nd, 1903. "The Caldwell girls continue to confound me," wrote Dr. Thorne. "When separated, they fall into dangerous states of distress. When together, they seem to communicate without sound, their eyes tracking invisible movements. Their mother reports hearing them speaking in unison during the night, though they are far too young for speech. I have advised the family to keep this matter private." The journal entries grow increasingly disturbed as the weeks passed. January 15th, 1904. "Margaret Caldwell summoned me in the night. She claims the children levitated above their shared crib. William dismissed it as a nightmare, but Margaret's terror seemed genuine. More concerning is the growth rate of the infants. They remain the size of newborns, despite adequate feeding. I've taken blood samples for examination." February 3rd. "The blood samples are anomalous. Under microscopic examination, the cells move in coordinated patterns I cannot explain. When I place the 3 samples near one another, the blood appears to pulse in unison. I have contacted colleagues at Penn Medical for consultation. The most disturbing entry came on March 7th. I witnessed it myself today. The Caldwell home was filled with a low humming sound. In the nursery, the 3 infants were awake but motionless, staring at the ceiling. From their mouths came not the cries of babies, but words, adult words in a language I couldn't identify. Margaret was catatonic in the corner. William was not home. When the speaking stopped, all 3 turned to look at me simultaneously and smiled. God help me, they smiled with awareness. The final entry was dated March 21st, 1904. It is done. May God forgive us for what we had to do. The town council voted unanimously. The children are not natural. The Bible will bind them. No record shall remain. The journal ended there. No death certificates for the Caldwell triplets were ever filed. The Caldwell family appears in the 1900 census, but by 1910, no trace of them remained in Westbrook Haven records. As news of the discovery spread, local historian Rebecca Myers began searching for additional information about the Caldwells and Dr. Thorne. Her investigation led her to the basement archives of Westbrook Haven's town hall, where she found minutes from emergency town council meetings held in March 1904. Several pages had been torn out, but fragments remained. Council voted to seal records regarding the Caldwell matter. Unanimous agreement that the public safety requires Dr. Thorne to perform necessary rites with Reverend Collins, burial to take place on unconsecrated ground. Myers also discovered that in the weeks following March 21st, 1904, 3 town council members died under mysterious circumstances. One drowned in his bathtub, one fell from his roof while reportedly sleepwalking, and one was found with self-inflicted wounds, having carved the same Triskelion symbol into his chest that the triplets bore on their necks. Dr. Elias Thorne himself disappeared from town records after April 1904. His practice was taken over by another physician, and his home stood vacant for nearly a decade before being purchased by the Henderson family in 1914. The discovery prompted modern forensic examination of the remains. Dr. Cassandra Powell, leading the forensic team, reported findings that defied conventional explanation. The DNA testing confirms they were identical triplets, Dr. Powell stated in her preliminary report. But there are anomalies in the genetic structure that our lab has never encountered before. Portions of the genetic code appear to be encrypted, for lack of a better term, as if certain segments were deliberately scrambled. More disturbing was the condition of the remains. Despite over a century of burial, the bodies showed minimal decomposition, appearing more like children who had died weeks rather than decades ago. The skin had mummified, but retained elasticity. Hair and nails appeared to have continued growing after death. The Bible they were holding seems to be the focal point, Dr. Powell continued. The hands of all 3 children were fused to the leather cover, not just holding it, but physically bonded to it. We had to cut through tissue that appeared to be still living to separate them from the book. The Bible itself was standard King James Version, but with one critical difference: the entire book of Revelation had been removed and replaced with handwritten pages. The text was written in multiple hands, alternating between what graphologists later identified as Dr. Thorne's writing and another, more elaborate script that remains unidentified. The new text described a ritual to bind 3 souls into one vessel, preventing their return to the world beyond the veil. References to the 3 who are one appeared throughout, along with warnings that separation would unleash what cannot be contained again. As word of the discovery spread, strange occurrences began plaguing Westbrook Haven. 3 local children, all girls between the ages of 7 and 9, none related, began experiencing night terrors on the same evening. All 3 reported dreams of the sisters who want to come home, Janet Wilkins, mother of 8-year-old Penny, described her daughter's experience. She woke up screaming that they were coming for her. She said 3 girls with no eyes wanted her to be their new sister. When I turned on the light, there were 3 spiral shapes drawn on her bedroom wall. But Penny was in bed the whole time. I would have heard her get up. Similar reports came from the parents of Lily Abernathy and Sophie Chen. All 3 girls began displaying uncharacteristic behaviors, speaking in unison, drawing the Triskelion symbol obsessively, and referring to each other as sister, despite having no prior friendship. School counselor Thomas Gardner attempted to meet with the 3 affected children together, hoping to understand the mass hysteria. The session ended abruptly when all 3 girls began bleeding simultaneously from identical marks on the backs of their necks, 3 spirals appearing as if carved into the skin. It wasn't just the bleeding that disturbed me, Gardner later told authorities. It was their faces. They weren't scared. They were smiling. They said, "The sisters are coming back. They're almost here." As these events unfolded, researchers made another discovery in the archives of Philadelphia's Historical Society. A series of unexplained child disappearances had occurred in Chester County every 33 years since 1904, in 1937, 1970, and 2003. Each time, 3 girls vanished within the same week, all from different families, all between ages 7 and 9. None of these disappearances were ever solved. In each case, the only evidence left behind was a Triskelion symbol drawn somewhere in the child's home. Anthropologist Dr. Marcus Whitaker identified the symbol as an ancient Celtic representation of the triple goddess, maiden, mother, and crone, symbolizing the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. This particular variation, Dr. Whitaker noted, was associated specifically with rituals of soul transference, the belief that one's soul could be moved from a dying body to a new vessel. The investigation took an even darker turn when researchers discovered that Margaret Caldwell hadn't given birth to triplets naturally. Historical medical records indicated she had been treated for infertility for years before suddenly becoming pregnant in mid-1903. Further investigation revealed that Margaret had consulted a woman named Agatha Blackwood, who lived in isolation on the outskirts of town. Local legend painted Blackwood as a healer or witch, depending on who was asked. She disappeared around the same time as the Caldwell triplets' deaths. Among Dr. Thorne's personal effects preserved by the Historical Society was a letter from Reverend Collins dated February 1904. Elias, I fear we have allowed great evil into our midst. The Caldwell woman has admitted to me that she made a bargain with the Blackwood woman, 3 souls for 3 bodies. The ritual required blood from both parents and the essence of the unborn. I believe what grows in those 3 forms is not of this world. We must act before the equinox, or I fear what might emerge will destroy us all. As the forensic examination continued, technician James Porter made a horrifying discovery. When placing tissue samples from each child under the microscope, the cells began to move, appearing to reach toward each other across the glass slides. At first, I thought it was contamination, Porter reported. But when I checked the microscope footage, the movement was deliberate. The cellular structures were reorganizing themselves, forming the same Triskelion pattern we've seen throughout this case. The most disturbing development came when Dr. Powell attempted to extract DNA from the Bible's leather cover. Tests revealed that the book wasn't made from animal hide, as initially assumed. It was human skin, genetically identical to tissue samples from an adult female. We believe the Bible cover was made from the skin of Agatha Blackwood, Dr. Powell stated. It appears to have been part of the binding ritual, creating a physical vessel to contain whatever was inside those children. As these discoveries mounted, the 3 modern girls, Penny, Lily, and Sophie, began showing physical changes. Their eye color, originally different, shifted to the same unusual amber shade. Their handwriting became identical. Parents reported that they would find their daughters staring blankly at walls, whispering phrases in an unidentified language that linguistic experts later identified as containing elements of ancient Pictish and Proto-Celtic. On March 20th, 2024, one day before the spring equinox and the 120th anniversary of the triplets' death, all three modern girls disappeared from their homes simultaneously. In each bedroom, investigators found the same message written in childish handwriting: "The sisters are calling us to the hollow tree where secrets sleep." A massive search operation began immediately, focusing on the densely wooded areas around Westbrook Haven. The historical records mentioned an ancient oak called Widow's Hollow that once stood at the border between the town and what was then Blackwood property. While the search continued, Dr. Powell made one final horrifying discovery. The tissue samples from the Caldwell triplets had disappeared from the sealed laboratory containers. In their place was a small puddle of fresh blood, formed in the shape of the now familiar Triskelion. More disturbing still, when researchers returned to the burial site, they found the grave open, not from above, as if someone had dug down, but from below, as if something had clawed its way out. The search for the missing girls led authorities to the remains of an ancient oak tree deep in the forest north of town. The massive trunk had been hollowed by fire and time, creating a chamber large enough for a small adult to stand inside. At the base of the tree, searchers found 3 sets of small footprints leading inward, but none coming out. Inside the hollow trunk, carved into the living wood, was the Triskelion symbol, large enough to cover the entire inner surface. Below it were 3 words: born, bound, reborn. There was no trace of Penny, Lily, or Sophie. As night fell on March 21st, the equinox, residents of Westbrook Haven reported hearing a sound like distant singing coming from the direction of the forest. Those who heard it described it as beautiful but wrong, the voices of children singing words no child should know. Sheriff Daniel Montgomery organized a second search party, focusing on the area around the hollow tree. As they approached the site shortly after midnight, multiple officers reported seeing 3 small figures standing hand in hand at the edge of their flashlight beams. When called to, the figures retreated deeper into the darkness. "They moved wrong," Deputy Collins reported, "like they were floating just above the ground, and their faces, they were smiling, but their eyes were completely black." The search party pursued the figures to a clearing 2 miles from the hollow tree. What they found there brought the investigation to a terrifying climax. In the center of the clearing stood 3 girls, holding hands in a circle. But something was horrifyingly wrong. In the beam of the flashlights, the girls appeared to be flickering between forms, sometimes appearing as Penny, Lily, and Sophie, sometimes as 3 identical girls in antiquated clothing, presumed to be the Caldwell triplets, and sometimes as something else entirely, described by multiple witnesses as shapes made of shadow and light, not fully human. As officers approached, the 3 figures spoke in perfect unison. "The binding is broken. The sisters are free. We are 3 who are 1, and we have waited long enough." Before anyone could react, a sudden gust of wind extinguished all lights in the clearing. When emergency flares illuminated the scene moments later, the girls were gone. In their place was a single black Bible, open to a previously blank page that now contained 3 names written in what forensic tests would later confirm was fresh blood: Eve, Esther, and Elizabeth. In the days following these events, 3 new families moved into Westbrook Haven: the Porters, the Winters, and the Blackwoods. Each family had a single daughter, age 8. None of the families had any prior connection to the area, yet all reported feeling called to the town. School records show that the 3 girls, Hannah Porter, Grace Winters, and Faith Blackwood, share the same birthday, March 21st, 2024. Each bears a small birthmark on the back of her neck, 3 interconnected spirals. Teachers report that the girls, despite having just met, appear to share an unusual bond. They speak in unison without seeming to realize it. They finish each other's sentences. During recess, they stand in a circle, holding hands and whispering together. When asked about their previous schools, all 3 give the same answer. We've always been here. We've just been waiting to come home. The Caldwell triplet case officially remains open. The bodies of Penny Wilkins, Lily Abernathy, and Sophie Chen have never been found. The Bible discovered in the clearing is kept in a secure facility at the University of Pennsylvania. Though researchers report difficulty keeping track of it, the book seemingly changes location when not directly observed. Dr. Powell, who led the forensic investigation, took an unexpected leave of absence following the case's conclusion. Her colleagues report that she became obsessed with the Triskelion symbol, drawing it compulsively in her notes. Her current whereabouts are unknown. The most recent development came last week, when groundskeeper Morris Finley, the man who first discovered Dr. Thorne's journal, reported seeing 3 identical girls in old-fashioned dresses standing at the edge of Harlow Cemetery at dusk. When he approached them, they reportedly spoke a single phrase in unison before vanishing. The cycle continues. Historical records show that 1904 wasn't the first time triplet girls were born in West Brookhaven. Similar births occurred in 1871, 1838, and 1805. In each case, town records fall mysteriously silent about the children's fate. More disturbing still, county birth records show another set of triplet girls due to be born this December in a town just 10 miles from West Brookhaven. As researcher Rebecca Myers noted in her final report before abruptly leaving the investigation, whatever was bound in 1904 wasn't destroyed. It was only contained. And now it walks among us again, wearing new faces but carrying an ancient hunger. The 3 have become one, and the one will never die. Sheriff Montgomery, when pressed for comment on the ongoing investigation, would say only this: some things should stay buried. Some secrets are kept for a reason. My advice: lock your doors at night. And if you hear children singing after dark, don't look outside. Don't let them see you watching. The case of the Caldwell triplets reminds us that America's soil holds darker secrets than we care to admit. Beneath the foundations of our oldest towns lie stories waiting to be unearthed. Stories of desperate bargains, ancient rituals, and cycles of horror that continue whether we acknowledge them or not. Perhaps some mysteries are better left unsolved. Perhaps some graves should remain undisturbed. And if you find yourself in Chester County and encounter 3 identical girls holding hands in the twilight, whatever you do, don't answer when they call your name. Remember to put your faith in God and Jesus Christ, for only they can protect us from the darkness that waits beyond the veil. For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. But sometimes when 3 become one, what gathers is something else entirely. The investigation into the Caldwell triplets unleashed more than just historical curiosity in West Brookhaven. As researchers delved deeper into town archives, they discovered a pattern of strange occurrences dating back to the town's founding in 1776. Local historian Rebecca Myers, before her sudden departure from the investigation, uncovered journal entries from West Brookhaven's founder, Jeremiah Westbrook, describing an encounter with 3 maidens of identical countenance who appeared to him in the forest and guided him to the location where he would establish the settlement. They spoke as one though they were 3, Westbrook wrote in 1775. Their eyes held wisdom beyond their years. They promised prosperity if I would build where they showed me and dedicate the land to those who wait to return. May God forgive me, but I made the pact they offered. The town indeed prospered, becoming one of the wealthiest communities in early Pennsylvania. But every 33 years, according to church records Myers discovered, the town paid a price. 3 young girls would vanish without trace, always during the spring equinox, always leaving behind the Triskelion symbol. Dr. Marcus Whitaker, the anthropologist consulting on the case, connected these disappearances to an ancient Celtic ritual called the Binding of the Three. In pre-Christian Celtic Britain, there was a belief that certain entities existed as trinities, 3 aspects of a single being, Dr. Whitaker explained. The ritual was designed to contain such entities when they attempted to enter our world. They would be bound into physical vessels, typically 3 vessels to represent their divided nature, and then those vessels would be linked to a 4th object that served as a prison. The Bible found with the Caldwell triplets appeared to be that prison. The binding object meant to contain whatever had been trapped within the 3 identical bodies. Further research revealed that the Blackwood family had lived on the outskirts of Westbrook Haven since its founding. Agatha Blackwood was simply the most recent in a long line of women who lived alone in the same cottage at the edge of the forest. Town records referred to them variously as midwives, healers, or, in times of greater superstition, witches. In the Historical Society archives, Myers found an account from 1762, predating the town's official founding, describing a widow Blackwood who could call forth life where none should grow and speak with those beyond the veil. The connection between the Blackwood women and the recurring triplet births became clearer when researchers discovered a hidden chamber beneath the ruins of the Blackwood cottage. Archaeological excavation revealed a circular room carved into the bedrock, its walls covered with the Triskelion symbol repeated hundreds of times in various sizes. In the center of the chamber stood a stone altar. 3 shallow depressions in its surface were sized perfectly to hold 3 infants side by side. The stone itself, when tested, contained traces of human blood dating back centuries, some samples so old that carbon dating was inconclusive. This was a ritual site, Dr. Whitaker confirmed. The positioning suggests it was used for ceremonies involving infants, possibly consecration, possibly sacrifice, possibly something else entirely. The repetition of the Triskelion indicates this was dedicated to the triple entity the Celtic texts describe as Morinya, 3 sisters who were also one being. As these historical discoveries mounted, the modern manifestation of the ancient cycle continued to unfold. The 3 new girls in town, Hannah, Grace, and Faith, quickly became inseparable, displaying behaviors that disturbed teachers and classmates alike. School counselor Emily Jenkins reported, "They don't play with other children. They stand in a triangle formation, holding hands and whispering. When separated, they become violently ill until reunited. Most concerning is their knowledge. They know things about the town's history that were never taught to them, things even most adults wouldn't know." During a routine art class, all 3 girls independently drew the same image. 3 female figures standing beside a hollow tree, with a 4th figure lying at their feet. When asked about the drawings, each girl gave the identical response: "It's the sisters taking the vessel home." Parents around Westbrook Haven began reporting that their children were having nightmares about the sisters who sing at night. Several children claimed to have seen 3 girls standing outside their windows after dark, beckoning them to come play in the hollow tree. 7-year-old Michael Dawson went missing on April 7th after telling his mother he was going to meet the sisters who know all the secrets. A search party found him 24 hours later, walking in circles around the hollow tree in the forest, seemingly in a trance. When discovered, he had no memory of how he got there or what had happened during his missing hours. The only physical evidence was a small Triskelion symbol drawn on his forearm in what tests later confirmed was soil mixed with human blood. The blood contained DNA from 3 distinct individuals, all female, none matching any sample in law enforcement databases. Michael's only statement about his experience was recorded by Sheriff Montgomery. "The sisters showed me the door under the tree. They said they needed a brother to complete the circle. But I wasn't the right one. They're still looking for their brother." As spring turned to summer, tension in West Brookhaven continued to build. Parents kept children indoors after dark. The hollow tree became a forbidden place, with sheriff's deputies patrolling the area regularly. Hannah, Grace, and Faith became increasingly isolated as other children were forbidden to play with them. Then came the dreams. On June 21st, the summer solstice, nearly every adult in West Brookhaven reported experiencing the same nightmare. 3 identical girls in old-fashioned clothing, standing hand in hand in a triangle formation, speaking in unison. "The binding weakens. The time approaches. The sisters will be whole again." Dr. Eleanor Walsh, a sleep specialist called in to consult on the case, found no medical explanation for the shared dreaming experience. "Mass hysteria doesn't manifest this way," Dr. Walsh stated. "The consistency across different subjects, the timing. There's no scientific framework that accounts for it." The investigation took another disturbing turn when 3 women in town discovered they were pregnant with triplets, all due on the same day in December. None of the women had used fertility treatments, and there was no history of multiple births in any of their families. More disturbing still, none of the women could clearly recall the moment of conception. Each described periods of missing time during March, around the equinox, and vivid dreams of 3 girls singing in the forest. As these events unfolded, researchers continued analyzing the artifacts recovered from the original gravesite. The Bible proved particularly resistant to conventional analysis. Laboratory equipment malfunctioned in its presence, digital cameras captured only blurred images of its pages, and staff members handling it reported vivid nightmares. Dr. Samuel Klein, a religious studies expert from Princeton University, was called in to examine the text additions to the Book of Revelation. His analysis revealed that the handwritten pages contained elements from multiple religious traditions, combined into a syncretic ritual text. It's as if someone took components of Celtic paganism, early Christian mysticism, and something far older, possibly Sumerian, and wove them together, Dr. Klein explained. The resulting text describes a ritual for binding a triple entity called the Sisters of the Threshold into human vessels. According to this text, the entity exists at the boundary between worlds and can only enter our reality by dividing itself into 3 parts. The most disturbing section described what would happen if the binding failed. "And the sisters shall walk again in flesh, seeking the 4th who will complete their circle. When the 4 become one, the door shall open fully, and what waits beyond shall enter our world. The sky shall darken, the earth shall tremble, and the cycle shall end as a new age begins." While examining the Bible, Dr. Klein made a critical discovery. Hidden within the binding was a small pocket containing 3 locks of hair, each tied with a different colored thread, red, black, and white, corresponding to the traditional colors of the triple goddess, maiden, mother, and crone. When the hair samples were tested, the results confounded researchers. All 3 samples came from the same individual, genetically identical, but showed 3 different ages. One sample came from a child, one from a woman in her 30s, and one from an elderly woman. All 3 had been preserved in the Bible for over a century. "It's a biological impossibility," Dr. Powell stated before her disappearance from the investigation. "The same DNA profile showing 3 different ages simultaneously. It's as if these came from the same person at 3 different points in her life, all collected at once." As summer progressed, Hannah, Grace, and Faith, the 3 new girls in town, began showing physical changes that alarmed their adoptive parents. Despite being unrelated by birth, their features were gradually becoming more similar. By August, they were nearly identical in appearance. School physical examinations revealed another anomaly. All 3 girls had stopped aging. Their physical development had halted entirely, leaving them frozen at the developmental stage of 8-year-olds, despite the passing months. Most disturbing was the discovery made by Faith Blackwood's adoptive mother, Sarah. While bathing her daughter, she noticed a mark on the child's back, 3 interconnected spirals that hadn't been there when they adopted her. When she touched the mark, Faith spoke in a voice much older than her years. "The 4th approaches. The circle will be complete." Sarah reported that Faith's eyes had briefly changed, becoming entirely black, like looking into empty space. Similar incidents were reported by the other adoptive parents. Grace Winters began sleepwalking, always found facing east toward the forest, arms outstretched as if reaching for something. Hannah Porter developed an obsession with the number 33, filling notebooks with the numeral repeated thousands of times. All 3 girls began speaking in unison without realizing it, the same words at the same time, even when in different locations. Phone calls between concerned parents confirmed this phenomenon was happening simultaneously across 3 separate households. In late September, researchers made a breakthrough while examining soil samples from the hollow tree. The soil contained mineral compositions not native to Pennsylvania or anywhere in North America. Geological analysis identified the soil as matching samples, typically found only in a specific region of Western Ireland, near ancient stone circles dating to the early Bronze Age. "Something physically impossible is happening," geologist Dr. Helen Morgan reported. "This soil couldn't have formed naturally in Pennsylvania. It's as if a piece of ancient Ireland was somehow transported here, or as if the boundary between those locations has somehow thinned." On September 23rd, the autumn equinox, the 3 pregnant women all began experiencing contractions simultaneously, despite being only 6 months along. All were rushed to Westbrook Memorial Hospital, where doctors struggled to halt the premature labor. As a strange mist rose around the hospital, power failed throughout the building. Emergency generators activated, but electronic equipment near the maternity ward continued malfunctioning. In the dim emergency lighting, nurses reported seeing 3 small figures moving through the corridors, girls in old-fashioned clothing, holding hands, their faces obscured by shadow. "They were singing," reported charge nurse Melissa Carter, "a lullaby in a language I didn't recognize. When they passed the rooms where the pregnant women were, the contractions intensified. It was as if they were calling to the babies, trying to draw them out before their time." Hospital security footage captured only static when the figures should have appeared on camera. The premature labor was eventually halted with medication, but all 3 women reported the same dream during their hospital stay. 3 girls standing around their beds, whispering to their unborn children. "The sisters will be born again," each woman recalled hearing. 3 vessels for 3 who are 1. In early October, Sheriff Montgomery organized a town meeting to address the growing fear in the community. The meeting, held in Westbrook Haven's historic town hall, was disrupted when all lights failed simultaneously. In the darkness, attendees reported hearing children's voices singing from every corner of the room. When emergency lighting activated, 3 words had appeared on the wall behind the podium, written in what appeared to be fresh soil: "The 4th comes." That same night, archaeologists continuing the investigation at the hollow tree made a terrifying discovery. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a previously undetected space beneath the tree, a chamber roughly 15 feet in diameter, 30 feet below the surface. When excavation reached the chamber the following day, researchers found walls lined with a material initially thought to be clay, but later determined to be a mixture of soil and human remains. Thousands of years of accumulated bone fragments, ash, and decomposed tissue. In the center of the chamber stood a stone identical to the altar found beneath the Blackwood cottage. This one, however, had 4 depressions rather than 3. Dr. Whitaker, upon examining the site, made a connection to ancient Celtic texts describing the womb of the 3 who wait. According to legend, the triple goddess required a fourth vessel, a human sacrifice, to fully manifest in the physical world. The three depressions were for the triple entity, Dr. Whitaker theorized. The fourth was for the sacrifice that would allow them to fully cross the threshold between worlds. Carbon dating of materials in the chamber yielded impossible results. The organic material dated to over 4,000 years ago, predating any known European settlement in North America by millennia. This site shouldn't exist here, Dr. Whitaker stated. It's as if a piece of ancient Ireland was somehow transported to Pennsylvania, or as if something created an exact duplicate. As October progressed, sightings of the three girls, alternately appearing as the Caldwell triplets, as Penny, Lily and Sophie, or as Hannah, Grace and Faith, multiplied across town. They were seen standing in formation around houses where children slept, appearing in windows of the elementary school, or walking in procession toward the forest at dusk. Most disturbing were reports from parents who woke to find their children missing from bed, only to discover them walking toward the forest in their sleep. In each case, the sleepwalking child was found with a triskelion drawn on their palm in dirt. When questioned after these incidents, the children all described the same dream. The sisters were calling me to help find the fourth. They need the fourth to open the door. On October 15th, construction workers renovating Westbrook Haven's old courthouse discovered a hidden chamber behind a wall in the basement. Inside was an archive of documents dating back to the town's founding, records that had been deliberately concealed. Among them was a covenant signed by the town's original settlers in 1776, addressed to the Sisters Three Who Guard the Threshold. The document promised that every 33 years the town would provide vessels for rebirth and the fourth who opens the way. In exchange, the settlement would prosper. Accompanying financial records confirmed that Westbrook Haven had indeed experienced economic booms every 33 years, always following the disappearance of 3 young girls and a 4th child. The pattern had continued until 1904, when Dr. Thorne and Reverend Collins had performed the binding ritual on the Caldwell triplets, trapping whatever entity they contained in the Bible prison. They broke the covenant, Dr. Whitaker explained. Instead of allowing the cycle to continue, they tried to end it. The 3 who are one were bound, but not destroyed. And now, 120 years later, 3 cycles of 33 years plus 21 years, they've broken free. As researchers pieced together this history, the 3 pregnant women began experiencing identical symptoms beyond their concurrent pregnancies. All 3 developed the same unusual cravings, the same patterns of movement from their unborn children, and most disturbingly, all began sleepwalking toward the forest on the same nights. Medical examinations revealed another impossibility. Ultrasounds showed that each woman was carrying identical triplet girls, despite earlier scans showing different numbers and genders of fetuses. When played back, the ultrasound recordings showed the unborn children moving in synchronized patterns, forming the triskelion shape within the womb. More alarming still, when the ultrasounds captured the faces of the unborn children, they appeared to be smiling, an expression impossible for fetuses at that stage of development. They're aware, Dr. Eliza Montgomery, the obstetrician examining the women, reported. Whatever these children are, they have awareness that shouldn't be possible. I've been delivering babies for 25 years, and I've never seen anything like this. As Halloween approached, the boundary between past and present in Westbrook Haven seemed to grow increasingly thin. Residents reported seeing figures from different time periods walking the streets, women in colonial-era dress, Victorian children playing games no one recognized, men in 1920s attire having conversations no one could hear. Always, at the edge of these apparitions, were 3 identical girls holding hands, watching with empty eyes. The 3 contemporary girls, Hannah, Grace, and Faith, began refusing to speak to anyone except each other. They spent hours standing in triangle formation, holding hands and whispering. Their adoptive parents reported finding them awake at all hours of the night, staring out windows toward the forest. When the parents tried to intervene, all three girls spoke in unison. "The vessels prepare, the fourth approaches, the door will open soon." On Halloween morning, all three girls disappeared from their homes simultaneously. A massive search operation found no trace of them in the town or surrounding forest. That night, as children prepared for trick-or-treating, Sheriff Montgomery imposed a curfew, keeping all residents indoors after dark. Deputies patrolled the streets, while search teams continued combing the forest with thermal imaging equipment. Shortly after midnight, as October 31st became November 1st, the Celtic festival of Samhain, traditionally believed to be when the barrier between worlds was thinnest, every electronic device in Westbrook Haven failed simultaneously. Cell phones, computers, vehicle engines, even battery-powered flashlights stopped working for exactly 33 minutes. When power returned, 3 sets of children's footprints had appeared on every doorstep in town, pressed into surfaces where no impressions should have been possible: concrete, asphalt, even metal. Each set of prints led away from the homes toward the forest. At the edge of each property, the footprints vanished, as if the children making them had suddenly been lifted from the ground. The following morning, deputies discovered a disturbing scene at the hollow tree. The ground around it had been cleared in a perfect circle 33 feet in diameter. The soil within the circle had been replaced with earth of a different composition. Later tests would confirm it matched the Irish soil found in the underground chamber. In the center, the 3 missing girls, Hannah, Grace, and Faith, stood motionless in triangle formation. When deputies approached, the girls turned in unison to face them. Their eyes were completely black, their features now perfectly identical. "We await the fourth," they spoke together. "The vessels are prepared. The sisters will be whole again at midwinter." Before deputies could apprehend them, the 3 girls sank into the earth as if it were water, disappearing without disturbing the soil. Ground-penetrating radar later showed no tunnels or cavities where they had vanished. They had simply ceased to exist in physical space. In the weeks that followed, Westbrook Haven descended into a state of collective dread. The pregnant women were placed under 24-hour medical supervision as their due dates approached. Researchers worked desperately to understand the ancient covenant and find a way to prevent whatever was coming. Dr. Klein's continued analysis of the Bible revealed a possible countermeasure, a second ritual described in the altered Book of Revelation, designed to permanently banish the entity beyond the threshold. "The text describes a sealing ritual," Dr. Klein explained. "It requires the willing sacrifice of someone with bloodline connections to the original covenant signers. Their life force would permanently close the threshold the sisters use to enter our world." Genealogical research revealed that Sheriff Montgomery was a direct descendant of both Jeremiah Westbrook and Reverend Collins, the founder who made the original pact and the minister who helped break it in 1904. "I'll do what needs to be done," Montgomery stated when presented with the findings. "My family helped create this nightmare. I'll end it if I can." As December approached, the 3 pregnant women were moved to a secure facility outside town. Despite the precautions, staff reported strange phenomena throughout the building: singing heard from empty rooms, the Triskelion symbol appearing on walls only to vanish when directly observed, and the women speaking in unison during their sleep. "The fourth is among us," they would say together. "The circle will be complete at midwinter." Researchers determined that the fourth, referred to in the ancient texts, wasn't another of the triplets. It was a separate entity or individual required to complete whatever ritual the sisters sought to perform. "The triple goddess traditionally requires a consort," Dr. Whitaker explained, "a masculine counterpart to complete the cosmic cycle. In the oldest versions of these myths, this figure was both sacrifice and gateway, the means by which the goddess could fully manifest her power in the world." This revelation cast new light on Michael Dawson's experience and statement about the brother to complete the circle. The entity wasn't just seeking to be reborn, it needed a fourth participant in whatever ritual it planned. Sheriff Montgomery, after consulting with experts from multiple fields, made a decision. Using the ritual described in the altered Bible, he would attempt to seal the threshold permanently on the winter solstice, December 21st, the same date the Caldwell triplets had been born 121 years earlier. The preparation was elaborate. The ritual required symbols drawn in the blood of the willing sacrifice, specific words spoken at precise astronomical moments, and physical components including soil from the threshold site, water from a natural spring, and fire kindled from wood of a lightning-struck tree. Most crucially, it had to be performed at the exact center of the threshold, the hollow tree where the sisters had repeatedly manifested. As the solstice approached, the three pregnant women all went into labor simultaneously, 2 weeks before their due dates. Despite being in different rooms of the secure facility, their contractions synchronized perfectly. Medical staff reported that the women, who had never met before the pregnancies, called out the same words during labor, phrases in a language later identified as Ancient Proto-Celtic. The phrases translated roughly to "the door opens" and "the sisters return." As Montgomery prepared for the ritual, researchers monitoring the hollow tree site reported that the ground around it had begun to pulse, as if something beneath were pushing upward. Thermal imaging showed temperature fluctuations forming the Triskelion pattern across the 33-foot circle. Most disturbing, soil samples taken from the circle contained traces of DNA matching all 3 sets of triplets across the centuries: the Caldwell girls from 1904, the missing modern children, and the unborn triplets still in the womb. The boundaries between past, present, and future are collapsing at the site, Dr. Morgan reported. It's as if all iterations of these entities are converging on a single point in time, the coming solstice. On December 20th, the day before the winter solstice, the 3 women gave birth simultaneously. Despite being in different delivery rooms, hospital staff reported that the births occurred at precisely the same moment. 3 sets of identical triplet girls, all with the Triskelion birthmark on the backs of their necks. Most unnervingly, none of the newborns cried. All 9 infants simply opened their eyes and looked around with an awareness impossible in newborns. When placed in the nursery, they arranged themselves in 3 groups of 3, each group forming a triangle. Hospital staff reported hearing singing from the nursery when no adults were present, 9 infant voices, somehow forming words in an ancient language. As midnight approached on the solstice, Sheriff Montgomery made his way to the hollow tree, carrying the components for the sealing ritual. A small team of deputies and researchers accompanied him, though he had insisted that they remain at a safe distance. At the edge of the 33-foot circle, Montgomery stopped. Something was already happening at the site. The ground within the circle had begun to glow with a faint blue luminescence. At the center, near the hollow tree, 3 small figures could be seen holding hands. As Montgomery watched, the figures shifted appearance, sometimes appearing as the Caldwell triplets in their 19th-century clothing, sometimes as the missing modern girls, sometimes as something older, 3 women in ancient Celtic dress, their faces painted with spiral patterns. "I know why you've come, descendant of the breaker," the 3 spoke in unison, their voices somehow both childlike and ancient. "You seek to bind us again, as your ancestor did before." Montgomery stepped forward, holding the ritual components. "This ends tonight. Whatever you are, you don't belong here." The 3 figures smiled with identical expressions. "We were here before your town, before your nation, before your people crossed the great water. We are the Sisters 3 who guard the threshold. We have worn many names across many ages." As they spoke, the air around the circle began to shimmer, as if reality itself were thinning. Through the distortion, observers reported seeing glimpses of other places, Stone circles on windswept hills, ancient forests, fire-lit caves where figures danced in prehistoric darkness.